So, in the past few weeks, we've been talking a lot about character development, how an author develops a character throughout a story. And one of the important things that we mentioned was how a character's actions affect that character. Okay. So an example of that was when Opal decided to go into Gertrude's tent to try to get Winn-Dixie a collar and leash, even though she knew that she couldn't afford it. But because of that action, what happened? She met Otis. Right? She got a job, and she was even invited to a first party. So that's all because of her actions. Now, characters' actions don't only affect them, but they affect other people as well. And today we're going to focus on how a secondary character's actions affect the main character by analyzing how main characters respond to those actions. Okay, so you can write down the teaching point now, if you already have. So good readers understand how the actions of a secondary character affect the main character by analyzing how the main character responds to those actions. So that's responding to the actions. When a character responds to an action, it's what they do, what they think, how they feel. That's all tied into analyzing the character. And it's important to know this because we need a whole image of the main character. And if you just look at how the main character's actions affect just the main character, you're not getting that whole picture. You need to look at how secondary characters affect the main character as well to develop that whole picture. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a passage from Because of Winn-Dixie, and I'm going to stop to point out how I think about the secondary character affecting the main character. So the secondary character in this case is going to be the preacher, and the main character is Opal. Okay. And the scene I'm reading is about the thunderstorm. We've already read it, so I'm just going to quickly go through it. Okay. There are an awful lot of thunderstorms in Florida in the summertime. Yes, sir, I said. I was afraid maybe he would say we couldn't keep a dog who went crazy with pathological fear every time there was a crack of thunder. Wow. So what I'm thinking already is that the secondary character has a huge effect on the main character. Just think about what would happen if the preacher said, all right, Opal, throw out Winn-Dixie. We can't have her. We can't have him. He's too loud in the thunderstorms. He's barking, and it's driving me crazy. So you're not allowed to keep him anymore. That would have a huge effect on Opal. Winn-Dixie means so much to her. She's helped her throughout so many different problems, and she really depends on Winn-Dixie. It's like an emotional crutch. So that would be an enormous effect on Opal. She'd be very upset, she'd be depressed, and she'd be lonely. She'd be very lonely if the preacher said, get rid of Winn-Dixie. But he didn't, right? So they continue. We'll have to keep an eye on him, the preacher said. He puts his arm around Winn-Dixie. We'll have to make sure he doesn't get out during a storm. He might run away. We have to make sure we keep him safe. Yes, sir, I said again. All of a sudden, it was hard for me to talk. I love the preacher so much. I loved him because he loved Winn-Dixie. I loved him because he was willing to forgive Winn-Dixie for being afraid. But most of all, I loved him for putting his arm around Winn-Dixie like that, like he was already trying to keep him safe. Now this is a huge part of the story. For Opal, what does it mean? The secondary character preacher was showing kindness towards Winn-Dixie, and that had an enormous effect on Opal, as I just read. I'm thinking that the preacher talked about how much he cared for Winn-Dixie. Opal understood that. It wasn't just because he thought Winn-Dixie was nice, but because he knew that Opal loved Winn-Dixie. So when the preacher says, we have to keep Winn-Dixie safe, Opal can think, wow, the preacher is doing this just for me. The preacher must really love me. So this shows, so good readers understand the actions of the secondary character. So the actions of the secondary character was the preacher showing kindness towards Winn-Dixie. And Opal's response to that action was feeling love. She felt love. Alright, now I have to think of a way to organize this. I've got all these ideas floating around my head. The best way to do this is to make a friend. A little chart. So insert, and I want you guys to draw this table. Okay, this is how your table is going to be organized. So on this line, I'm going to have you write secondary character actions. So this column is going to be the secondary character's actions, and in this column, I'm going to have you write effect on main character. Okay, so this is a very easy way to organize this in your notebook if you're going to be thinking about how the actions of a secondary character affect the main character in the story. Okay, so what did we talk about this? The first thing I mentioned was that the preacher did not drive quickly. Okay, and what was the effect on the main character? Opal would be able to keep a closest friend and not become upset and lonely. Okay, and we don't have time now, but it'd be nice to throw in a quote there too. It's just we have to keep going. And the next action, second character did, in this case. So the preacher put his arm around Winn-Dixie to keep Winn-Dixie him safe. And what did you say the effect of that was? Opal knows that the preacher cares for her, even though he doesn't always show it, and this makes Opal feel well. Okay. So thumbs up once you've written this down. Like most of you have finished. Good. So what I'm going to do now is read another passage from Because of Winn-Dixie, and what I want you guys to do is think about how the actions of the secondary character affect the main character by analyzing how the main character responds to those actions. Okay? And then after I'm finished with the passage, I'll have you add to the chart yourself. Okay. This is chapter 12, and again, we've already read this, so you should have a pretty good idea. I'm just going to read through it pretty quickly. Me and Winn-Dixie got to Gertrude's press so early for my first day of work that the close sign was still in the window. But when I pushed on the door, it swung open, and so we went on inside. I was about to call out to Otis that we were there, but then I heard some music. It was the prettiest music I had ever heard in my life. I looked around to see where it was coming from, and that's when I noticed all the animals were out of their cages. There were rabbits and hamsters and gerbils and mice and birds and lizards and snakes, and they were all just sitting on the floor like that, turned to stone. And Otis was standing in the middle of them. He was playing the guitar he had on a skinny, pointed-toed cowboy boot, and he was tapping them while he was playing the music. His eyes were closed, and he was smiling. Okay. So, in this case, the secondary character is going to be Otis, and I want you guys to write down an action Otis is doing and how that action affected Opal. So go ahead and add on to your chart. Take a couple minutes. Thumbs up when you're finished. Oh, good question. Okay, so there might be a little question about this part over here, and there was a connection. I didn't draw on the link there, but it was sort of inferred. When I say that Opal knows the creature cares for her, even though he doesn't always show it, Opal knows the creature cares for her because he cares for Dixie, and he cares for Dixie because he cares for Opal. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You guys? No. Well, yeah, so that's part of it, but, you know, when the preacher says he cares for Dixie, he's really showing that he cares for Opal. Okay, so what I want you guys to do now is turn to your book club partners and discuss what you added to the chart and why you added it. So go ahead and